All right, so first things first, find a comfortable seat. And today we're going to start with oming. So, can you hear me all right? Just you can give me the thumbs up. Fantastic. So, welcome. And we're going to start with 3 ohms, and we're going to take this Anahata Mudra. So you can see the base of my palms are squeezed together, my fingers. It's like you're making a cup or a tulip with your hands. Theoretically, you could keep liquid in there and then bring your thumbs to your heart. So this is an Anahata Mudra, a mudra of the heart. Close your eyes. Root down towards the ground so you can feel freedom to lift up towards the sky. Take a full inhale and exhale. And then inhale through your nose. Om. 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 Relax your hands down to your knees and just take a full deep breath. And then we're going to spin around, bring the bottoms of your feet together. You want to have roughly about 2 hands length between your groin and your heels. And then we're going to come back onto our elbows. Let your head drop back. If that's annoying for your neck, you can always keep your chin towards your chest. And we're going to come down pretty soon, so you're not going to stay there very long with your head hanging back. So you don't have to get too worried. But take a full inhale, and with your exhale, just sigh out your breath. And feel how much your sigh actually helps you release. This posture is a very dramatic opening to start our class today. And since we're practicing yin yoga, it's always, for me at least, helpful to remind myself how I'm going to go into the poses. So we already did the part where you found the right shape for your body. And then as much as you can while you're in the posture holding the shape, soften and let go. Letting your belly be soft, your tongue be soft. Just using enough muscles to stay in the pose. And then we take a moment to make an inner commitment to stay with the pose without letting boredom or annoyance take us away from the pose. But if there's sharp pain, always come out of a pose if that's the intensity level is demanding that you do. Now take a full inhale, and with your exhale, allow your elbows to slide out to the side, bringing your upper body down to the ground. And then you're going to bring your fingers together. So you're going to bring your thumbs and your index fingers to touch. And you're going to place your hands right where the ground and you meet. So you don't have to lift up your head. Your thumbs just reach exactly the spot where your skull meets the earth. Take a full inhale, and again, if you want, you can sigh out the exhale and feel how much it helps you root into this present moment and kind of soften into your body. So when I was deciding what I wanted to focus on for this class today, I first looked to what are like the biggest things going on right now. And, you know, Ellen just might have picked up that I don't watch the news so much. And I'm actually much more interested in much bigger events than the news. And that is more the cosmology, what's going on in our sky right now. And there's I mean, there's a lot of drama these days. We have a very intense sky, but there's two major things going on. And the first is that we're going to have a full solar eclipse, the 19th or the 20th, depending where you are in April. And the second thing is on the 21st, Mercury now is already stationing to go retrograde. And so I really, in my thinking about this class, want to talk a little bit about the eclipse and do a practice that honors both the sun organ of our heart, as well as a little kind of nod towards Mars in our gallbladder. Now, Mars is a yang organ, and it's coupled together with the liver. And the heart is a yin organ, and it's coupled together with the small intestines as the yang organ. But I wanted to bring these two archetypes together because this is some of the feeling that we might want to actually ignite and lift up in ourselves during an eclipse. Now stretch your arms up and then up, so above your head, and then reach your hands above your heart, like a little sprout coming out of the ground. And then lift up your feet so you can probably see a little bit of magical light in between your soles. And as if we're ready to be reborn, try to dive through that light and notice it lifts you up. And we can roll directly forward into a forward bow here, letting your head hang, letting your palms be open, make the small adjustments that you need to make the posture work for you. Take a full inhale with your exhale, just sigh out your breath. So this solar eclipse, it's only visible from like very few places, inhabited places on Earth, including like some parts of Indonesia, the very absolutely the western sliver of Australia, but mostly it's out over the ocean that it would be seen the best. And what an eclipse is when the moon, a solar eclipse is when the new moon happens right directly in front of the sun, in front of the earth, so in between the sun and the earth. And traditionally, the moon is always connected to the feminine and the yin. Let me re-say that. Today we're going to be looking at them, these two luminaries, the sun and the moon. And traditionally, in Taoism, for instance, the moon is connected to the yin while the sun is connected to the yang. Moon is much more connected to water, and the sun is connected to fire. The moon to the feminine, the sun to the masculine. One of my favorite stories about the opposite being true, where the sun was connected to the feminine and the moon to the masculine, is in the Inuit tradition. And it was told to me in such a lovely way, where someone was like very kind of matter of fact about it. Like, of course the sun is women, because look what happens when women shine their light on a man, he lights up. And you can take those archetypes and put them to any type of relationship you want. You don't have to be confined to our physical expressions. But this idea that our radiance illuminates the other is true whether we look at the sun being masculine or feminine, and vice versa with the moon. So, quite literally, what happens during a solar eclipse is that the moon blocks the light of the sun reaching the earth. And this one is happening it's happening at a time where the moon is actually quite nearly the furthest away from the earth that it goes. And so it has the moon comes in front of the sun, and there'll be like a halo all around the shadow of the moon. And with your next inhale, start to roll up. And you're going to cross your ankles and roll over your crossed ankles and set yourself up so that you're tucking your toes under and sitting on your heels. And this is quite, as you will notice, quite a fiery position to be in. So we might as well add something else to go with it. So inhale, stretch your arms up. Just feel a nice stretch. Maybe it pushes down your heels a little bit. Then lower your right arm. Slide your right arm out to the right, keeping your butt on your heels, and then drape your left arm so you feel the stretch all alongside your ribs. You can let your right elbow bend, intensifying the arc to your right. And then inhale up, stretch your right arm up, slide your left hand out a little bit, maybe bend your elbow, and feel the stretch in the intercostal muscles. So this is a very yangy moment, but we still can notice that the yin happens. So I'm keeping my arm engaged so I don't like fall over. That's the yang, but I can feel that deep stretch in my intercostal muscles, all in between the rib cage. And then come back up to center, still sitting on your toes tucked. Take your hands and either just have your hands in prayer or spread your fingers out so the base of your palms and your thumbs are connected, but your fingers are blossoming out. It's a little bit like if you pay attention to your fingers, maybe your toes won't hurt so much. Maybe. All right. Now shake out your hands. And then come forward and just slap out your feet. And then rock your hips back to your heels and let your knees lift up, stretching the fronts of your ankles. And then slide into Sphinx. If your lower back is sensitive, you can keep your legs close together. You have your elbows shoulder distance apart. If you have your elbows slightly in front of your shoulders, it's a wee bit more passive. If that's still too much for your back, you can always slide your elbows further forward so that your rib cage comes onto the ground. If you have a nice and juicy open spine, you can take your legs wide. Take a couple moments to take full deep breaths in the pose, kind of noticing what's going on, what feels good, what feels challenging already. Now, nowadays, I know part of it is because I'm studying astrology, and so in my little, logarithms, like, of course I get all this astrological stuff. But even though I'm predisposed to get that information, it is something that is gaining popularity right now in a very sweet and bizarre way. That it's been really out of style to wonder about what Mars is doing or what Venus has to do with our evolution. But there's something going on in the way our world has been changing and shifting that has prompted people to start to ask again, what do these heavenly bodies have to do with me? In ancient times, eclipses were always kind of associated as an omen or a threatening time, while the new moon celebrates starting something new, planting a seed that you want to grow. There was something scary about eclipses, even after it was understood why we experience the eclipses. What's actually happened, the moon is just passing in front of the sun. It's not like the sun is going dark. And even in modern day, a lot of astrology is about kind of sensationalized and a little bit more kind of a video game sensibility, as if the planets are like coming to get you. And like, oh no, this transition's going to be so hard, or this is going to be so dramatic. And there's this kind of sensationalism that, it sells videos. People love that stuff. We like entertainment. Now, staying still lifted in your Sphinx, take your left arm and bring your hand to where your right elbow is, and then bend your left knee and reach back with your right hand and just pull your foot, maybe pull or push your foot towards your buttocks. So you're stretching maybe the front of your thigh again. Very nice, very nice. And then softly release and just switch your arms to do the other side. I was doing the crossbow variation, Sabine, but it looks pretty awesome the way you're doing it. So whichever arm you used, you're gonna be great. And then release your leg and bring your hands closer to your chest and inhale, lift up into seal. So there's all sorts of different seals. You can be a big fat mama bear seal and take your hands wider. You can be like a hyperactive, like whoop, teenager seal and take your hands closer. A little bit like this popularity and this sensationalized astrology, which, you can make fun of and be like, oh my God, the eclipse is going to change everything. There is also this feeling of that adds to this idea of the planets doing stuff to us as if it's again, reward and punishment system. But when we start to look at the planets and their natures and actually notice how they relate to our inner being and our organs, we can take kind of this different attitude that we understand that we also can lift up archetypes in ourselves. We can lift up, we can magnify elements of ourselves on purpose to kind of balance out the shift in moods or emotions that planets can have an effect on. Now slowly, slowly, slowly start to lower yourself down. Take your forearms and stack your arms so your arms become pillows, and just shake your booty side to side. And then take your hands underneath your shoulders, bend your knees, spread your knees wide, and come into a wide-kneed child's pose. It should feel pretty yummy and good. Allow your next couple of deep breaths to get to know the pose. But this theme that I'm seeing in astrology is a theme that we can see everywhere we look right now, which is this, maybe it's the dying out of this habit, but this idea that we are victims of everything. And the the biggest challenge about getting stuck in the victim mentality where everything's being done to you and you are surrounded by perpetrators who are doing bad things to you. One of the challenges of this archetype is that the medicine for it isn't the opposite. And we see this pattern all the time. We can see it especially when someone has come out of a violent family life, that often it's a really hard task for them to not later in their life recreate similar out of balance, messed up situations, violent situations where they're the perpetrator. Or people who've come from war-torn countries and been in an oppressed group, come to a new place and they rediscover their power as the one to be like the mean person, the one with the power. We've seen this pattern often. And so we know that the healing of the victim archetype is not the perpetrator, is not doing harm to others. Rather, there has to be a deeper shift, a more dramatic inner transformation that allows us to rise above that dynamic. Now, this is very, very challenging. Like, no one wants to hear, like, oh, darling, you have to rise above the trauma that happened to you. But oddly enough, it's this kind of turning yourself inside out and rising up out of yourself and freeing yourself from just being a product of your trauma that actually is what will allow you to move forward and discover who you are on so many different levels and connect with other human beings and the whole world in a new and fresh way. Now, keeping your knees as wide as they are, just lift up onto your elbows because we're going to add a twist. So you're in your wide knee child's pose. Come up to your elbows and take your left hand and thread your left hand behind your right elbow. Bring your left ear onto the ground. You can even stretch your right arm up, bend your elbow, and wrap your arm around behind you. Maybe your fingers find your left thigh. You can kind of like pinch your fingers in, and then it's a little bit more passive again. So living here in Sweden, probably in Switzerland a little bit, but there's a little bit more drama here because we're further north about what a difference sunlight makes to our general disposition, our general mood, our general attitude. So now in the spring, when the light comes flooding back, now that we've finally had our first week without any snow, I think it's melted away from everywhere. We can feel kind of this rush of life being restored to us. And it's not always gentle. It can be a very hard time emotionally because we get nearly excarnated from the vast increase of light. But you really feel what a difference it makes. Now unwind and come back to your elbows to twist the other way. Bringing your right arm behind your left elbow, bring your right ear to the ground. Stretch your left arm up to the sky, bend your elbow, and then spin your arm around behind your ribs. Take a full inhale. With your exhale, just sigh out. Again, in Sweden, it is so dramatic in the spring to start to see how quickly things do start to grow when they finally have the opportunity. I've lived in Sweden 9, 10 years, been here quite a bit before that as well. And it's here, it's like, I really feel like all of a sudden spring hits and like every plant is like rushing to get out of the ground the fastest. But we can really feel how our will is ignited by the sun. We notice how the sun warms, how the sun illuminates, but that it wakes up a part of our being that is the sleepiest part of our being. Points to how extraordinary our source of light is. And then start to unwind this side and slide your knees together and take your arms back behind you. So you're lying in embryo pose. And then roll up, and we're going to move into Anahata Asana, which is the posture of the heart. So you're going to slide your arms forward and then lift up your hips and then slide your arms even more forward. So your forehead can come to the ground. You can also bend one arm and put your forehead on your forearm. But the key element here is that you want to feel your chest dropping towards the earth and have your hips over your knees. I giggled because it's nearly like, we were just in child's pose. Would this be like teenager pose? Which I kind of, if you've had a chance to be around a lot of teenagers, it feels like their head is a little bit like in the sand, their butt up in the air. But feel this pose that with every exhale, your chest drops more towards the earth. Now, this eclipse is taking place in the sky. So that the sun is in front of the constellation of Aries, and it's just the last couple degrees. The last degrees. It's not a couple degrees. It's in the last degree. It's at 29 degrees Aries. So right before, I think less than 24 hours, the sun moves into the sign of Taurus. Now, I just need to be technical and very precise here. Astrologically, what we're talking about and physically are a little bit different here. So physically, the sun is still in front of the constellation partially of Pisces, because the astronomy and the astrology are a little bit different. In Vedic astrology or sidereal astrology, you have accounted for the slight shifts that have happened over the hundreds and hundreds of years, so that they are 23 degrees behind tropical astrology. But the mood of where this eclipse is taking place is that the sun is in front of a very fiery constellation sign. It's this fire of initiative and fire of will and fire of creativity and urges. And so what happens, like for instance, the time that you were born, the sun was in front of a particular constellation. And so the picture of why we are the way we are is poetically very beautiful, that the sun blocks out these other stars. And so in order for ultimate balance to stay harmonious in the cosmos, the beings that are born during that time when the sun is in front of those stars, lighting, overlighting those stars, the beings that are born on Earth actually carry characteristics that the constellation that's being blocked by the sun has, so that there's this ultimate balancing act, that we as human beings actually have this, you know, very intimate balancing relationship to the whole cosmos. And we can take the story even a step further, that there is this, that you became a gift of this nature when you were born. To be like nearly like a little memory of where everything was in the cosmos at that time. Like it's as if us in our human beings and our human bodies were timekeepers. Start to let your whole body slide forward, stacking your forearms again, letting your spine relax in a neutral position. And then slide your hands underneath your shoulders, and you're going to help yourself up, because we're going to transition into a frog position. So if you're on a carpet, for instance, you can just take frog right where you are. So you bend your knees, lining up your knees with your hips, flexing your feet so you stack your ankles right underneath your knees. You know frog, Ellen, love, don't you? So um, imagine the screen is the floor. You're basically like this. So your knees are lined up with your ankles, your knees are lined up with your hips, and your thighs are spreading. Don't I look like a frog right here? There you go. Um, but it's much easier on the floor, but it is intense. Yeah. Oh, you're looking good. Perfect. So for if your hips aren't very open, your butt's going to be high up in the air. If you are very open in your hips, it's nearly like you're lying flat. A good, so Sabine's friend. Yay, hi. You want to bring your knees up so they're lined up with, like, put your butt in the air a little bit more and have your knees so they're really lined up with your hips, not behind your hips. Yes. It's not quite as comfortable. Beautiful. And you will find over the next about 5 minutes that with every exhale, you go a little deeper. So the intensity climbs. You can flex your feet so your insides of your feet are on the relaxed on the yoga mat. And whenever your knee is at a 90-degree angle, flexing your feet, which means pulling your toes, dorsiflexing your feet, pulling your toes to your shins, protects your knees. So Tanya, I think you can like really be more on the side of your foot. Oh, I'm going off screen here. So my heel is nearly touching the ground. Yeah. There you go. And then pull your toes up. Yeah, now you're perfect. So notice your name might have been Sabine's friend or Tanya, because we always get to imagine that we carry all the names of everybody whenever we're in a yoga class. But take a couple of breaths, take full inhales, unhurried, unscared breaths. And maybe even sigh out a breath or two to feel your body soften and trust you more. So this frog pose often gets quite intense. Notice how you are talking to yourself. Notice how what kind of tone of voice you even use. Or notice how when you're uncomfortable, you will start to question, not only your capabilities, but wonder if I know what I'm doing, or if this was really a bad idea, or, we start to get all up into the different elegant ways of blaming our suffering on something outside of ourselves or another, and thereby kind of coming into the habit of this victim mode. So this is very similar to how in the olden days the eclipse were treated. Like, oh no. But today I want to encourage us to have the drive to actually remember or even just entertain the idea that none of our cosmos, none of the stars, none of the planets are there just like as decoration or accidents. That somehow we are actually evolving together with our physical earth. We're evolving together with our whole universe. To lift up the question of like, how do I feel this? What challenges me? Where are my archetypes? Where do they come from? How come I'm like this or like that? And even once we go, okay, oh, how come? And we can lift up different stories and traumas and gifts that we received in our biographies. We want to rise up one more stairs up, one more level up, and start to understand like, okay, this isn't happening to me, this is happening for me. And if it's happening for me, what does it ask of me to do that I don't naturally do, or that I actually have to supply the will to allow it to happen, the will for it to become part of how I am in this constellation of the cosmos. So with the eclipse, my picture I keep having is, well, you have to, when this moon is blocking the sunlight, what we are being asked to do is to really pull out of ourselves light. You know, even just this picture, imagine opening your mouth and like sunlight comes out of your mouth. What if your words could be that invigorating for people? What if your words could be so warming? How do we channel these powers that we feel inside of us out into the world to be of service to other people, to be of use to other people? And I know this frog is getting more intense. Be willing to feel it. What does it take for you to turn your light on? Have you ever had that experience where, you see someone and you can literally see them light up, nearly as if a switch has been flipped? Could it be that we can start to cultivate this on purpose? What are you willing to let go of to help you be more open to share this light? Coming right towards the end of it, it's going to be done soon. Notice if you can breathe still deeply, unhurried, staying with your tenderness. And with your next inhale, start to slide your body forward. So coming out of frog feels the best if you just move straight forward. You can lay down, stacking your forearms again. You can cry a little bit if you want, or just groan. All right, then you're going to come up onto your elbows one more time, and this is just as a transition. Bend your right knee and bring your right knee lined up with your hip again, so it's like a one-legged frog, but shouldn't feel at all that intense. Yeah, so just, yeah, exactly. And then up on your elbows, you're going to take your left hand and you're going to thread your left hand behind your right elbow, and oh, look, there's your knee. And then you're going to softly whip yourself open. So you want to just take your right arm and open it up. Feel that you come into the twist here. You can drop your right hand so it's lower than your shoulder, palm towards the ground. Take a full inhale. With your exhale, just sigh out. So even though this eclipse is only visible for like a small part of the world, what I'm hearing more and more is just how sensitive people are and are becoming. And all of us feel these things on various degrees, to various degrees, in multitudes of ways, like 7.888888 billion different ways. And whether or not you can put your finger on the particular feeling that is because of this planet or that planet, that I don't think is so vital. But to be in the practice of lifting up your own nature, your own way of being kind, your own way of leaving goodness behind you. That is one of these liberating forces for you to become liberated from feeling like the victim, feeling like the person who the things happen to. Roll back onto your belly. And you're going to this time take your left knee out to the side. And then slide your right hand behind your left elbow. Grab onto your knee and gently flip yourself open by opening your arm out like you're like, yes, I'm open to this. Take a full inhale. With your exhale, sigh out and soften. You can put your left hand lower than your left shoulder and then turn your palm towards the ground, and it just passively actually helps you drop your shoulder blade to the ground. I think that we have to make it a practice of reminding ourselves that we are living in extraordinary times. And that as much of the crazy things that we're witnessing in the world, that we're hearing that are happening, as much of all of these really nearly impossible things have been happening, to really turn that around and remember this also means that there's so much more infinite possibilities for who I get to be, who I am. You know, we want to start to notice that we don't want to use reason to keep ourselves withheld from this universe. We want to let our beingness radiate forth like sunbeams from our beingness, from our person, from the things that we do. It's one of the like one of the raw materials that each human being brings. We have the freedom to place our attention where we want. And when we place our attention on love, it can be like a beautiful freaking superpower. It's the hardest work to do. That's where we're in it together. You don't have to do it by yourself. Now, take a full inhale. Exhale, just sigh it out. And then roll onto your back, finding your way to Shavasana. So maybe you want to adjust the lighting or put on, you know, a blanket or cover your eyes. But you let your body relax to the ground. If your lower back hurts, you can always have your knees bent. Take your feet as wide as the yoga mat, quite some distance away from your buttocks, and just let your knees drop together passively. Palms open to receive, eyes closed and trusting. And then allow your body to be still. Allow your attention to stay in the room, even on your mat. So instead of practicing falling asleep here, we are practicing being conscious while absolutely still. with your next inhale, start to invite your breath to your edges. Wiggle your fingers, wiggle your toes, and with your inhale, stretch your arms up over your head, stretch your whole body long. And with your exhale, curl into a ball, maybe smiling a little bit, and then roll onto your side if that's comfortable, and just feel for a moment this life, this vibrancy and vitality in you. And then help yourself up into a comfortable seated position. You can bring your legs into full locust, half locust, sukhasana, any pose you want. And let's close our class with the same mudra that we started. So we're going to take the Anahata mudra. Bottom of your hands are like glued together. Bring your thumbs to your breastbone. Effort your fingers out. Close your eyes. Feel the ground below you. Feel that when you root down towards the earth, you have more freedom to rise up above it. Just take a moment, maybe thanking yourself for your practice or noticing insights or aha moments that came up during your practice today. Then let's empty our breath and take a deep inhale for one Om. Bring your hands into prayer to your third eye. Invite the divine light, lots of sunlight. And as we bow forward, together we say, Namaste. And so much love. Now make some noise to wake us up. Woo! Thank you so much.